So my name is José Andrés. I came to the United States first on the Navy of Spain 24 years ago. And upon my return to Spain, I got the opportunity to come back. And I came back. I was supposed to be in America for 6 months, but then things keep showing up. And 22 years later, I know where I come from, but also I know where I belong. 3 beautiful daughters, a great wife. Washington is the place I call home. And in my first encounters, in my trip on the Navy, I visit Ivory Coast for the first time, and I was able to spend a week. And I'm not a guy that likes to sit around, so from Abidjan, I moved deep into Ivory Coast, and I was able to begin seeing the realities of the world we live. I was a young guy, but for me, it was almost an awakening call to see that other people didn't have the same things I had. Believe it or not, it's sometimes that you have the wake-up call and you say, wow, man, it's really people that live different lives. We are in different dimensions. So is the video going on? No, my slides? Great. So when I came to America, I arrived in New York, but then 2 years later, I moved to Washington, and I met a man called Robert Egger. Every one of you should meet that person. It changed my life dramatically. Robert Egger believed that waste was wrong, and he did something about it. He got a truck, he got a little kitchen donated by the city, and began on Inauguration Day on President Ronald Reagan, picking up all the leftover food that no one ate, trays of food that were untouched. He put them in the truck, he took them to that kitchen, and he began cooking with those foods that were untouched, smoked salmon and many other things, and began sending them to churches and community kitchens around the city. 25 years later, this central kitchen feeds 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people a day. Depends if we are in winter or if we are in summer. Because we do also school lunches when no private company wants to do it because the money that the city pays is not enough to even make a profit. So we pick up the gap. But we didn't only do that. We took people out of the street. We cleaned them alcohol and drugs. We put them in the kitchen. We trained them to be cooks during 16 weeks program. And then we graduate them, and then we found them jobs in the community. Amazing way to be empowering people and giving them an opportunity to be real members of society through a unique program. You know, making sure that waste is something of the past and giving an opportunity to people to become part of who you are. So take a look at this phrase. I tell you because I saved many years of my life to buy a first edition of this book. Since I was young, I heard that. Tell me what you eat and I will tell you who you are. And think for a second. Me, some days, I'm not happy of who I am when I think about what I eat. And this is a powerful phrase that we should all keep in the back of our minds. So, this is what I do. I'm a chef. I cook for the few. This is a restaurant that I only serve 12 people a day. The price, I don't even want to tell you. I feel even ashamed. But I subsidize that meal because if I really charge what I should, people will be screaming. But you know, I feed the few, but I have a true interest in feeding the many. But not only me, but for my profession. For me, it was very amazing to understand that when we are talking about the Farm Bill or we are talking about how to feed the world, seems as chefs, we are never in the table of the conversation. And yes, we may be very egocentric and we look ourselves in the mirror and we like the press speak about how well we cook. But it's really a sincere need of chefs to get involved in the way we can be part of the solutions that we need in this world. So after my experiences at the urban level in this is Central Kitchen, I was in the Cayman Islands with my family. The earthquake hit. And to me, it was a very sad sensation to feel like I was enjoying that amazing vacation and not too far away, this was happening. 2 months after the earthquake, I went to Haiti. And everyone keeps thanking me about what I did at DC Central Kitchen, thanking me for what I'm doing there. And I always tell everybody, you don't need to thank me. I'm only going through my learning experience. I do believe that if we want to be helping people in the world, before we start imposing what we think their solutions are, we need to be all doing an MBA on the ground about listening and learning and watching about what people do, what people need. I have a feeling like we come with a white man mentality. That's what you need. Boom, and we dump it on them. And they're there like, what? So after Haiti, I realized that I wanted to be helping more. And I began looking at other NGOs. I didn't want to do another NGO, but I felt that I needed an NGO like World Central Kitchen, where we are going to stop throwing money at the problem and we're going to start investing in solutions. And this is a video I did after 3 years of work. Almost we are beginning, we launched our organization almost officially yesterday. So I wanted to show this video that we finished overnight. And with this, you're going to get an idea of what I'm thinking about World Central Kitchen. Can we put the video? I watch, I smell, I talk, I listen. We're here with a simple mission, to make sure that food is an agent of change.
World Central Kitchen will implement creative solutions to fight hunger in a sustainable way.
The idea is big, but the implementation is simple. One people at a time, one plate at a time, one project at a time.
So we have many dreams for World Central Kitchen. We are already working in different projects. We will build a canteen to feed 100 children or more a day. We will help build a bakery inside an orphanage, so the bread can feed the children, but at the same time can create income for the orphanage itself.
They're trying to make everything sustainable. Tilapia fish is one of the things. The other one is chicken farm, and then the bakery.
Right here in this orphanage, they can be learning so many professions. Why not? Bread making.
You need people in the public sector, you need people in the private sector. You need to touch down into the communities. You need NGOs that have been physically present here. We can act as a catalyst with a holistic view of the project and putting all these pieces together.
From now on, we need to start thinking about not only giving, but smart giving. Giving is if I give you food to eat. Well, if you give food to eat, you're going to be killing those farmers because you are going to put them out of work because you are giving food for free. In the 70s and the 80s already were programs that were very unsuccessful. 20 years later, the cook stoves are an issue. They burn charcoal, they create erosion, deforestation, kills people. I see that it's a true plan to bring improved cook stoves. Improved are those that use less charcoal and less wood, and also to bring clean cook stoves, those that don't use any charcoal, any wood. The people of Haiti, the people of the world, they don't want our pity. They only want our respect and help for them to reach it on their own, that horizon of success that we all aim for. World Central Kitchen is going to try to be that, the catalyst of change in the lives of people through the power of food. I think it's about time that we start putting food at the top of the pyramid of importance. Brillat Savarin, the Frenchman, philosopher, gastronomer, 1826. The future of the nations will depend on how they feed themselves. If
If we make things happen in Haiti, I believe we can make things happen anywhere around the world.
What do you think? Oh. I didn't want to do the video, but I had this amazing friend, Sebastian, Alicia, Nate, who came from Mogadishu. In the moment they found out I was going to Haiti, because they say, Jose, you need a little video to begin telling what you want to do. So hopefully with World Central Kitchen, we have projects like, I went to this beautiful place 4 hours away from Port-au-Prince. If they had roads, it will only take you an hour. It's a beautiful place. It's like Switzerland. It's paradise. It's the last frontier of trees. It's a place called Forêt de Pin. And you had these women that they are producing strawberries, beautiful strawberries, an amazing organization. You will look at that farm and you will think you are, I don't know, in Virginia, in Maryland. Unbelievable what they have. They began 6 years ago, before the earthquake, way before the earthquake. And they gave up because they were not able to bring the strawberries to Port-au-Prince. And the locals, strawberries was something too expensive for them. So I heard about them, and I went to see them a couple of times already. And I began talking to the leaders. I spent time with them. I watched how they produce. And I began asking them what I think I knew the answer. How can I help you? How can we help you? Imagine for a second, in Port-au-Prince, restaurants and hotels are bringing strawberries from France or from Florida. But those women are producing strawberries there. If we will invest a little bit of money in a refrigerator truck, into a solar walk-in or solar refrigerator, into a woman with a phone doing the marketing and the sales in Port-au-Prince, and a little investment in the boxes so the strawberries can make it into the market safe, all of a sudden, we are investing in these people. We are not just throwing money to these people. So this is many of the ideas that I want to be putting in Haiti. Small investments in the places that you only need to be closing the gap. I hope World Central Kitchen is going to give me this kind of window into how we can really be putting food and real food solutions into true answers to the problems. So this is one of the problems I speak in the video. I am the ambassador of the Alliance of Clean Cook Stoves because I'm a cook. And for cook, my father told me that I have to control the fire. But these people are cooking with charcoal or wood. The people don't have money, they buy wood. They pick up wood for free in the mountains. 98% of the country is deforested. You know what happens? That they send the kids to pick up the wood. Sometimes it takes them 2, 3, 4 hours. These poor kids don't have time to go to school. And when they are way too hungry, way too tired to even be able to learn anything. At the same time, take a look at that kid in the photo. The mother is cooking because they don't have cribs. This kid, already I can tell you, is already asthmatic before he even had the chance to begin being a citizen in his community. When the rains come, because it's not trees, guess what? The mountains become slopes. Takes away homes, lives sometimes, and even worse too, at the same time than lives, takes the fertile soil on the top layer of the land that is supposed to be producing the food to keep feeding people. This is what we hope also with World Central Kitchen, not only implementing but helping organizations that are already in many parts around the world trying to bring improved clean cook stoves or clean cook stoves. And I will ask myself, why if in Dominican Republic they were able to make LPG gas successful and available, how is it possible that in the same island, in one part, we were able to bring gas somehow affordable to the population, and in the other part, we are not able to achieve the same? When you understand all the political problems, social problems, you see that sometimes solutions are right around the corner. We need to be helping those people to push for those solutions. But to me, Haiti is the perfect example that something like work in Dominican Republic, we are not able to put it up and running in Haiti. Hopefully, we will we hope we will be influencing people to do this. Here you see a solar kitchen. It's not like I believe the world is going to be cooking with solar, but I love to use this because it's the perfect way to show that actually is the possibility to be giving people the opportunity to cook with zero energy, only using the sun. This will be the perfect miracle. This is what we should aim for. Even today is very much kind of a dream. But nonetheless, every time I go, I always try to bring some and show this as an example of what the future may look like. Other thought I wanted to share with you with Haiti. We give the United States aid internationally is something to be really applauded. It's amazing what America does as a government and its citizens. But guess what, for a second, I mentioned it in the video. When we began giving food at the beginning, because people really needed food, that's great. When people are really hungry, hey, we have to go and help. But if you keep giving that help over long periods of time, 70% of Haiti, they are farmers. We were giving so much food for free that we put many of those farmers, the rice producers, out of business. So in the process of helping, yes, the people that suffered the unfortunate earthquake, we were putting people 3 hours away out of business because no one was buying the products. We were sending meals ready to eat, which everyone cost $9, $10, $11, $12. Those were created to feed the military, not just to give first aid. We should start being smarter. If we were able to reconvert these meal ready to eat into smaller packages, smaller units of food, the savings of money will be great. And instead, maybe of giving these packages, we can be using that money to start creating systems to be buying food locally right where tragedy happens. Would be an amazing way to restart the economic growth of those countries that really need our help. So because we are young and we can throw crazy ideas, take a look about the food truck. Let's change for a second. Let's think about America. We have hungry people in America, unfortunately. And we have sometimes moments that things happen that we need to be having our best behavior in how to respond to crisis. Take a look at New Orleans. Take a look at what happened in Haiti. I'm only dreaming. This is my food truck. I didn't buy it for business. I bought it because I like to watch soccer games, and sometimes I like to invite friends, and here I get my friends eating my bread, my sandwiches. But they had a bigger dream for these food trucks. We have hundreds of them, thousands in America. Imagine for a second that we are able to create this amazing first response net of food trucks. That if something will ever happen, and God hopefully will not make anything happen, we can be responding to the needs of people immediately by having this kind of headquarters that will, with GPS, and any moment, just make sure that we activate this amazing division that we will have of food trucks and chefs ready to be feeding the people in need. Cool idea, no? I'm only bringing this crazy idea only to say that we have to be bold in the issues that we have to be addressing to fight hunger. Some things are getting better, but not as quick or as fast as we need. And we're going to have to be creative. And maybe why not? Why we don't convince one day the Navy to give us an aircraft? Next time Haiti happens, or anything happens anywhere in the world, we have the biggest kitchen on the sea, ready to have a whole bunch of chef corps, ready to join with food trucks and helicopters that we can reach any point in the planet and start giving aid and food immediately. I know it's bold enough to be, I have to be nudged to be here and be sharing these ideas with you. But sometimes I really like to put this forward in the way of saying, guys, fighting hunger, you can allow yourself to be bold. Of food waste. How is it possible that we have canning invented in 1800, in 1810, and somehow canning, that is something like 200 years ago, invented by Appert, thanks to Napoleon Bonaparte. Canning today is not being used in the third world. Me, I hate that I'm around Haiti and I see all those farmers with all those mango trees falling down to the floor. Wow. Why are we not bringing, not the new techniques and the new technology, the old technology back forward today and start helping people to preserve their own foods? Because my time is up, I want to really finish my talk with another quote of Riyad Sabaran. And I want every one of you to take this quote with you to your heart. The destiny of nations depends on the manner in which they feed themselves. we are in a moment that this phrase is really at the heart of what we are all looking for. We need to understand that food is not the problem of obesity, that food is not the problem of all the CO2 emissions we have and the environment issues we have in the world, that food is not the problem of hunger, that food is not, but that is the contrary. If we understand the power of food, food will be the solution to every one of those issues that we are confronting today. So here, in honor of Riyad Sawaran, thank you very much, guys.
Chef Jose, for your very wonderful comments and your very powerful presentation. As Ambassador Quinn had talked about, dialogueNEXT was born from the exciting momentum that we generated from last year's Borlaug Dialogue, the theme of which was how do we empower the next generation to get excited about agriculture and get involved in agricultural development and in the fight against hunger and poverty. So we really wanted to continue that conversation today, which is why we have assembled such an exciting and diverse array of thought leaders in their respective fields. And we're very excited to have these speakers share their unique perspectives on what does it take to get young people excited and how young people can make a difference in this cause. So the first speaker that I'd like to introduce is Ellen Gustafson, who is on a mission to bridge the foodie community with the food security community. And with that, I'll let her give her talk. Thanks.
Thank you. It's so exciting. I know it's late and the young people are supposed to be the ones that stay up late, but I'm glad there's some older people here. Thank you, people with gray hair, for coming. We really appreciate your support. Maybe we could, next time, let's do it at 6 a.m. next time, and we'll see if the demographics change at all. But thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Ellen, and I really like to eat. And I think that something that we forget often in these conversations at the World Food Prize, but at hunger symposia, at conversations about agriculture, often we forget about ourselves as eaters. And the topic I was kind of, given to really focus around in this particular, group of amazing panelists was the intersection. And I think that's a really important thing that young people can bring to this conversation. There is so much interest and passion around eating and around food and around good food and around local food and around sustainable food and all these other things. And we have to make sure there's an intersection between that and then the other side of the coin, which is how are we going to feed people? My work in feeding people started after actually working in security issues, noticing the connection between hunger and food security and just general security, insecurity. And I then began to work at the United Nations World Food Program. While there, I noticed their school feeding operations, which are an absolutely brilliant intervention to get kids fed and also educated. And I started a company called Feed. Actually, every one of you got one of our bags, thanks to the Buffett Foundation and the awesome Invest an Acre program. So it's really fun and really weird for me to see an entire hotel of people carrying around my bag. And so I've thought on a number of occasions of going up to them like, oh my God, you have my bag. But then they'd be like, no, sweetheart, that's my bag. But anyway, thank you. I hope you can all spread the word about the mission to help feed kids through a fashion brand when you get home. But the reality is, I think we have obviously a challenge on our hands to feed the world better. And I think sometimes we miss in these big conversations one side of the coin. Of course, we need to provide enough calories to the people who need them, but calories and yield are not really the problem here. And we have to sometimes step back and be honest about that. Food waste should even maybe account for the fact that many of us eat way too much food ourselves. What if the number of overweight people in the world, their amount of overweight could be considered a form of food waste? We then really would have plenty of food to feed the entire world. So the intersection between hunger and obesity is really in some ways the call to action for our generation, and especially our generation of people that are involved in food. Something that's really important for us to remember, and why my organization is called the 30 Project, is because in some ways, the powers that have been in charge in the last 30 years have handed to us a world food scene with 1 billion hungry and 1 billion overweight. And certainly there are so many factors behind why that's the case, but that's the case. And when we were looking for solutions, We have to heed Einstein, and we have to remember that trying to do the same thing over and over again to get a different solution is the definition of insanity. And we have to maybe try to do something a little bit different. So in my lifetime, since 1980, hunger is up, obesity is dramatically up. It essentially has been created in my lifetime since 1980. We obviously have this major imbalance between hunger and obesity that is completely coexisting, not only in our world, but in our communities and sometimes in individual people. We also have to remember, of course, as everyone in this room does, this basic fact. And the picture of agriculture very often defines the picture of food security in a particular region. But it also means us. The picture of agriculture in our own society has often led to the food outcomes and the health outcomes that we have. It's hard to say this in Iowa, but this is not the only thing that we can grow. Farmers are entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs can change when demand changes. And if we look at food like the real free market that it is, maybe pulling away the major metrics of things like corn to something like this, which is a little bit more healthful, are things we need to think about. Right now, our food system promotes us not to eat this, but to instead eat this, and the numbers are very clear. In the last 30 years, we've dramatically increased the amount of this that we're eating. And that is something that we know is going to have to change if we're going to have a healthy population and we're going to feed the world going forward. The reality is today in America, we're supposed to fill half our plates with fruits and vegetables, but American farmers alone could not provide enough fruits and vegetables for every American to eat this way. That is a market opportunity for farmers here at home, and that certainly isn't a market opportunity around the world. So we really have to think differently about the system. We have to develop new metrics. We have to wonder what the right questions are. What does free market really mean anymore in the food system? To me, it means the farmer's market, where I have real information and can make a real capitalist choice of the food that I want. And maybe we should be talking about nutritional yield and not just calorie yield. What is waste? And what about replication versus scale in how we build wider food systems? Again, how are we going to feed the population meat, the growing demand for meat? What if the demand changes because we realize that we can't eat meat at the levels we've been eating today? That's not a question that's often asked in these really important fora. And also, what is value? If we're going to increase value, we have to define what value is. And if we're going to inherit the food system, we have to be the ones to define it. So I argue that all of us here can do something really valuable themselves to change the food system. And it goes entirely down to what we do every single night. Because if we demand better food for ourselves, we're going to fit into our genes better. And by the way, at the same time, we're probably going to help save the world. So I argue to encourage all of you to just think about changing dinner yourselves, how that can affect your community, and again, how that can affect the world.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Next up is Molly Mattessich. As the manager of online initiatives for the National Peace Corps Association, Molly has really brought to the forefront the powerful concept of that idea, that one idea that could make a difference. And through her program, Africa Rural Connect, she was able to connect people from all over the world on an online exchange of ideas. And with that, Molly, please, it's all yours.
Hi everyone, I'm delighted to be here tonight to talk to you about a project that I've been working on for about the past 3 years, Africa Rural Connect. The premise behind Africa Rural Connect is to find answers to rural Africa's greatest agricultural challenges by listening to the African farmers and those closest to them. It was started by the National Peace Corps Association, the nation's leading nonprofit supporting and championing the return Peace Corps volunteer community. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Mali about 10 years ago and got to see firsthand what it's like to collaborate with and learn from African farmers. So people like me wondered, what can the National Peace Corps Association do because of our experience and relationships to really contribute to solving the food security crisis in Africa? Our approach was to connect the people who lived on the ground, namely African diaspora, rural farmers, Peace Corps volunteers, and others. Now, some of you may be thinking, crowdsourcing, that's a great idea to get other ideas, and it is if you just want to get someone to do your work for free. Africa Rural Connect is not crowdsourcing. It is a win-win platform where everybody who contributes can get something out of it. So we like to call it crowd surfing because the best ideas really rise to the top. On Africa Rural Connect, you can search for ideas, you can offer your own ideas, remix ideas, endorse ideas, and even communicate with people on the site to make pledges to their ideas to implement them. An idea on Africa Rural Connect will show you the countries where it can be implemented, an approximate budget, a summary of the idea, and the basic elements of a business plan. What makes Africa Rural Connect unique is that you can remix ideas and make them better. For example, if a student posts an idea but doesn't understand how to create a marketing plan or how to put in a budget, you can add in that budget by remixing the idea. You can apply an idea that someone wrote about for Ghana to Tanzania, and so forth. On Africa Rural Connect, every idea version is saved in a timeline so that you can look at the timeline and see what was the critical piece that really made this idea stand out. What PDF, Excel spreadsheet, photo was added that made this idea really special? No contribution goes unnoticed. Right now, over 20,000 people have created profiles on Africa Rural Connect from over 140 countries, and 1/3 of them are living in Africa right now. Now, when you look at this photo, you probably see a family of chickens. I see a teenager from Uganda who posted an idea asking for an investment. A 20-something in Cameroon, a 20-something living in Paris who is from Cameroon, he's a member of the African diaspora, saw this idea on Africa Rural Connect, gave him the money, and now that chicken family is being raised, that original teenager who posted is giving some chickens to his neighbor. That neighbor raises the chickens and gives chickens to his neighbor, and so forth, so that everyone in the village has chickens. And this idea came from a teenager. We've had really great success because the media has been so interested in the stories coming out of Africa Rural Connect. We've been placed in the Washington Post, on Voice of America, US News and World Reports, just to name a few. We're working our connections to really amplify the ideas that are coming from the continent and around the world. I met Munroe Karuku, who's living just outside of Nairobi, and he posted on Africa Rural Connect, and he said, winning the Africa Rural Connect contest has completely transformed my organization from a hitherto little and unknown Nanyuki-based organization to a now recognizable name all over the world simply because I shared my idea on Africa Rural Connect. This irrigation jug is a testament to the partnerships that Munroe was able to create after posting on the site, and now the school children are using this water to have a garden year-round where they can eat vegetables year-round. I come to a lot of these conferences and I always hear the same questions. How can we share documents and plans with other NGOs around the world? My answer to anyone who asks that question is Africa Rural Connect. People ask, how do we connect with the African diaspora and rural farmers and youth for that matter? My answer, again, is Africa Rural Connect. How do we find great ideas and implement them on the ground? Africa Rural Connect. So I leave you by saying that if you are interested in Africa Rural Connect, you can participate. But if your company is interested, you can become involved and decide the countries, the sectors, the ideas, whatever you might be interested in, you can use the Africa Rural Connect platform. And who knows, maybe you or your company will help to find the next big idea. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Molly. After Molly, we have the perfect person to talk about how you take that idea and turn it into a sustainable enterprise. And Simmonds comes from a private sector background, and he will talk about how to create an enabling environment where we can take that idea and make it successful.
Cool. Awesome. I wanted to give Bianli, let's give her a round of applause for putting this panel together. It's not easy. How's everybody doing? Thanks for having me here. I want to talk a little bit about my background, private sector. On the side, I teach entrepreneurship. Every summer, this past summer, the State Department sent me to a couple African countries to do entrepreneur training. It's a boot camp. And through this training, I've realized that, and through doing things in terms of helping entrepreneurs get capital and giving them advice, I realized there was one thing that's missing, and that's an enabling environment. How many of you have been to a Silicon Valley or go to Silicon Valley? You know, that's an enabling environment. Every other block, you have an incubator, accelerator, a place where entrepreneurs can go and they can get ideas, tested, and what have you. There's a mantra about fail fast, fail early, fail often. We don't have that enabling environment in Africa. DAIN Network, what we do is we use the power of the diaspora. We have about 12,000 people in our diaspora network, and out of those 12,000, 4,000 have experiences working at Cargill, Coke, Hershey. All the major food companies you see in your grocery store, we have Africans that have worked there, currently working there. We basically use those diaspora to provide technical assistance, mentorship opportunities for early stage companies. If you have a really great idea, you come out of a university, where do you go to get mentorship, technical assistance? So that's what we do with DAIN. This enabling environment is very key. You know, Silicon Valley, you have to have a community of mentors, people with money, and then you need a little bit of public financing to get those ideas to the next level. On the flip side, you have people who are investors all over the continent that are looking for great ideas. We call it deal flow. So it's a true public-private partnership, but how do you bridge it? So we're focused on ideas that can focus on value addition, innovations and technologies that can help with, alleviating post-harvest losses. And one entrepreneur, she has an interesting way of taking plantain and turning it into different products. Basically, she wants to use it for baby food, kind of like her having her own African version of Gerber. Now, we're talking about a youth. Now, how do you engage a youth? I had a conversation with director of Cargill earlier this year, and one of the things she said, a lot of the cocoa farmers in Africa or in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, they're in the 50s and 60s. What are some ways you can engage the youth? And I said, well, what are you doing to engage the youth? And she said, well, we don't know. We're looking for ideas. I said, well, you have to make agriculture sexy. How do you do that? A lot of these youth, they don't want to do agriculture. They want to become the next black Mark Zuckerberg. They see their colleagues in the States. They're like, hey, why can't I be Mark Zuckerberg? So at an earlier age, we've got to find ways to engage the youth. Things such as innovation challenge, cocoa innovation challenges, things that can resonate with them so that one day they can create really great ideas. Talked about a diaspora. Now, shared value thinking. Michael Porter talks about this. Who knows about Michael Porter? He's a famous business guru at Harvard Business School, and he talks about shared value thinking. Now, if you don't have shared value in your mission statement or in what you're doing, then it's not going to make sense. You could do whatever project that you are doing in Africa, but the diaspora is not in your plans. And when I talk about diaspora, I'm talking about people who understand the nuances of doing business in their respective countries. Look at, I mentioned about the old roles and the new roles, and these are just some ideas that I'm thinking about of making a true incentive to get youth engaged in agriculture. Now, how can you help a partner? Now, we're looking for a lot of different things. I mean, I think one of the things that we're trying to do, we're trying to have a physical space. A lot of the mentorship we're doing now is online and virtually, what have you, but we want to have an agribusiness incubator in a pilot country, and the country is Ghana. We want to have a physical space where people could test ideas, scale them to another level where it could be a Unilever, Coke for Ghana, and potentially that idea could be a next deal for them. Plus, it could create jobs, it could help with the food security situation, and it can trade on a local stock exchange. This is what we want to do. This is some of the things we plan on doing in the incubator. Let's see what's the next slide. Now, before I leave with this, one of the things I want to tell you or ask of you is try to figure out how to engage the diaspora. If the diaspora is not part of your plan, then you're missing out, because not only does the diaspora have the technical assistance and the intellectual might, they know nuances of doing business, and you just can't do things in Africa and expect to just keep doing it, and in 10 years they're like, well, how come nobody's, how come these businesses or these farmers or these entrepreneurs are not scaling ideas? Well, you got to engage people who know how to do things in those respective countries. And with that, that's the end.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nee. Our next speaker is Michael Deal. He's the Executive Director and CEO of VEGA, which is Volunteers for Economic Growth Alliance. And he's going to share with us how regular people, as a volunteer, can contribute their time and their respective expertise in helping in agricultural development.
Thanks, Bian. It's, it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight, even though it is past my bedtime already. But I've asked Nee to kind of pinch me if I start nodding off later on in the presentation. I'm going to try to talk a little bit about VEGA's role in youth programs and how we assess impact, despite the enormous challenges that are facing the youth worldwide today. 1 in 5 youths live in extreme poverty on less than $1 a day. Nearly 90% live in developing countries, and the challenges they face are enormous. Low quality education, lack of marketable skills, high rates of unemployment, crime, early pregnancy, social exclusion. And many youth in rural areas really don't see an alternative and thus are looking to migrate to the cities. They're looking for a quick, easy way to earn money. So in looking at our programs in VEGA, VEGA is an alliance of some 19 NGOs. We work around the world in over 100 countries globally, and they focus in on international development, economic growth types programs, and they've been working for over 40 years in these various programs, from agriculture to SME development, microenterprise, and impact investing. Tomorrow morning, you'll have an opportunity to meet a number of our members who are participating in a side event on volunteer services tomorrow morning. One of the things that characterizes our organization is our ability to bring in highly skilled volunteers and have them work alongside the professional staff. When we went to review sort of our experience in youth focused programs and the way in which we incorporate youth in the variety of programs that VEGA members implement around the world, we came up with 3 key lessons learned that I want to talk about tonight. First, it's very important to focus in on mentoring the youth leaders, trying to foster entrepreneurship and trying to help them become role models for other youth, engaging young people in viewing agriculture as a career path. Secondly, we found that it's not just a matter of integrating skill training into programs, but also linking it to specific business opportunities. It's not just training for training's sake. And thirdly, it's important in our programs to employ a comprehensive, market-driven value chain approach. So what I'm going to try to do is very briefly talk about a specific project that illustrates how our programs are trying to accomplish these 3 key lessons learned. First, in terms of trying to deal with the leaders, the ACDI Vocal, one of our members working in Iraq, has a program called the Community Action Program, and they incorporate youth in every aspect of this. And what they've done has been, they've been able to incorporate a number of ways in which to reach out to the youth and include them, include the leaders, through apprenticeships, through training in leadership and local governance, through the schools, the sports, and the recreation centers. They provide training in the whole range of job application tools, from writing CVs to interviews and leadership and conflict resolution programs. They've also been able to incorporate internships for students in ag sciences at the university level and also at the community level by working with youth through, and incorporating into 4-H programs. But beyond reaching out to youth and helping them become role models and leaders, it's important to link the training to specific business opportunities. And in this case, I wanted to make reference to a Land of Lakes program, a dairy program in Kenya that's tried to address the problem where youth there want to make an easy dollar. They really don't want to they don't have the patience for agriculture, and they're not really seeing the opportunities to create careers in agriculture. So what Land of Lakes did was put together a marketing program, a drink milk marketing program that helped to identify the demand for dairy products and to try to see that there is an income generating opportunity there. Also, in this program, Land of Lakes was able to address an issue where the youth weren't really incorporated into the dairy co-ops, into the producer associations. They were kind of dismissed. And so they had to take an approach that engaged the whole family. And they specifically worked with youth by setting up a youth fund to address training needs, to provide them with a cow, to provide them with follow-up support so that they could become successful businessmen and integrate into their co-ops. And as a result, it was a very successful way, cross-generational. And as dairy is often a family enterprise, by helping the youth, it really became a source of pride for both generations. And it also, we can point to a long waiting list of youth that would like to get into this program. Finally, the third key lesson learned, I think, is best illustrated by a Winrock project, Education for Income Generation in Nepal. And what they've been able to do is take a comprehensive approach, an integrated entrepreneurial literacy approach where they merge literacy, numeracy, and how to use government services, HIV/AIDS awareness, and focusing in on how to start a business, profit, loss, and access to credit. And on top of that, they layered a whole series of youth technical skills, but they identified specific opportunities in the value chain so that they could see how they could make a profit and help create a real business. As a result, all of the participants in this program have actually had an experience of doubling their income. So I would like to close by just kind of relating these three lessons learned from our programs to the old adage of teach a man to fish and you provide him with a meal for the rest of his life. I think our experience in Vega is that these programs really mean that we have to go beyond just teaching a youth how to fish. We need to see the opportunities and the obstacles and empower youth to become change makers, leaders who can see the future and help make it a reality for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. It's not enough to just provide them skills. We have to link them directly to specific opportunities, job business opportunities, and show that farming is a business. It's not just subsistence. And if we employ a comprehensive approach in addressing this, then we think we can develop programs and have an impact that will have a significant and lasting effect on the youth. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. Now I'd like to introduce Cooper Munroe, who is the co-founder of the Motherhood and a member of the board of directors of One Moms. And she is a mom on a mission, and she's going to share with us how one person can be someone of influence online and be an advocate and voice for the fight against hunger and poverty.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here. My name is Cooper Munroe, and I'm the co-founder of themotherhood.com. Started a blog in 2003 with a friend of mine who I'd worked with on and off since the beginning of, when I started to work. And we'd known each other for about 25 years. And we started this blog at a time when there was no such thing really as blogs. People were like, what are blogs? And there was especially no such thing as blogs written by women. And we were kind of an anomaly, but really were captivated and absolutely transfixed by the voices who were emerging in the early days of the internet, and what they were saying and doing for each other, especially communities of women with children, and women who were talking about different issues that they were hoping to find community around, or support around, or ideas around. And it was a really eye-opening kind of radical world, and very pioneering, because there were things that people were talking about that no one had ever talked about before. You open up Parents Magazine, they're certainly not talking about what they were talking about on these blogs. And we did this for a couple years, and got to know the women who were writing the blogs, and got to know the community, and fell in love with the writers and the voices. And then in late August of 2005, Emily and I were, she's in New York and I'm in Pittsburgh, so we work virtually together. We were screaming at our television sets, like I imagine many of you were, at people who were stranded on roofs, or were carrying babies through snake-infested floodwaters, and saying, why isn't anybody doing anything? Why isn't anybody helping? And we had our blog. We had a couple hundred readers a day. And we thought, well, they were doing fundraising efforts. There were some things that were happening through the blogs and on the internet, but we kept saying, we got to do something more. We have to do something more. And so we wrote a blog post. We said, we all have stuff. I have 4 kids, 4 little babies at the time, crawling all over me, and I had tons of baby clothes with tags all over them, never been worn, boxes of unused diapers. I said, well, why don't we just write a blog post and say, we're going to figure out, you write what you have, we have all this stuff, and we're going to figure out how we're going to get it to the Gulf Coast. Great idea, right? Not knowing anything about anything and never working as a relief worker in any sense of the imagination, wrote this blog post, hit publish. A few hours later, blog crashes. Tens of thousands of donations show up in the comments section of our little blog, which was called Been There, meaning like, oh, hon, I've been there. So, what are we going to do next? We got all this stuff. We've got, people who are willing to donate. So we said, okay, well, we'll become a community corkboard. We turned our blog into a corkboard where people were posting what they have, and we went to housing, people who are supplying housing, hurricanehousing.org and others, and saying to them, we got all this stuff. We got to find the right people, the people who have the need size 3 diapers or a specific type of formula. And so one by one, we connected on our community corkboard. And it was an epiphany in many ways. One, this was 2005. There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. I mean, we were just starting, the blogs were just emerging as vehicles for communication and for change. But at the same time, in Katrina, and I think many of you will agree, is that the institutions failed. They admittedly failed. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. It didn't work. The federal government wasn't able to get into Katrina and do what they needed to do immediately. And, some of the relief organizations, frankly, weren't either, and they admitted it too. But there were people who were doing things individually because they felt like they had to. 3 days after the levees broke, there were a group of moms from Chicago on our blog who started to organize. And they got the word out that they were collecting goods, in-kind donations. Somehow, it got on the radio. This woman's yard got filled with loads and loads and loads of stuff. She thought she was going to fill the back of her minivan and go down to Louisiana, figure out how she was going to do it. An 18-wheeler and a big, massive van later, she's on her way down to Louisiana the Friday after the levees broke. The next day, the president stood up and said, relief efforts have failed. Heck no. A group of moms in Chicago got a whole bunch of stuff down there. And I wish that we had those carts, or those things you're talking about, because you and I really could have done something there. We've gotten food down. I mean, seriously, can you imagine? Like that. Honestly. I was thinking, oh my God, can you imagine? So anyway, so this is what we've done. And I know I'm over time, and I really have a lot more to get to. But I will go quickly. So what we have been able to do, we formed the Motherhood right after this because of this realization that, first of all, our effort was completely, entirely run by women. There were women donating and there were women who were receiving, and the connection was very powerful. And when women wrap around something that really means something to them, they can take any hill. There is absolutely no doubt about it. We agree? Women can take any hill? Yeah. Okay, so So Emily and I just have started, what we were able to do out of Katrina is we figured out ways to enable women to mobilize around things they really, really care about. And one of those things that we really care about, and the women in our community, which we have built since that time, we really care about, is eradicating poverty around the globe, in our country and around the globe. And we partnered with One to work on their One Moms program, which is this incredible thing. And how much do you guys know about One? So it was co-founded by Bono and embraced by A-list celebrities everywhere. And it's an amazing organization because it's not about raising money, it's about raising voices and about pushing change through policies and really, really smart action. And we are very proud and honored to be a part of One and a part of their One Moms effort. And it's bipartisan. I mean, they really do I mean, we've lobbied on Capitol Hill. We've done all kinds of wonderful things that are really incredibly effective. And here's a little bit about what One has been able to accomplish.
There's a fire starting in my heart, reaching a fever pitch, and it's bringing me out the dark.
Millions of people in the world's poorest countries remain imprisoned. They are trapped in the prison of poverty. It is time to set them free.
Never before have so many come together to lobby such a small group.
A relatively small amount of money from the rich nations of the world could simply change history.
A new kind of entrepreneurial activism, nonpartisan, hard-headed, focused on results.
I am so proud of the One campaign. You guys have been everywhere.
They show up at all my town hall meetings.
It's really made a difference in terms of raising awareness, making presidential candidates focus on the issue.
The presence of One in Africa provides us with a new opportunity that can take the work that we have been doing and translate it into greater influence.
Britain has a moral responsibility to help the world's poorest people.
Chapantonne, qu'est-ce qui nous prouve que ça marche?
The journey of equality moves on.
We know what it costs, we know what to do. Do it. Do it.
Because our voices were heard, millions more of our brothers and sisters are alive.
Now this is quite an incredible thing. What I consider the most beautiful picture ever.
In just 10 years, over 15 million more kids are alive.
And over 46 million more kids are in school.
When aid is focused on poor people, when it's done properly, it works.
Yes, there are many obstacles, but God will put a wind at our back and a rising road ahead. If we work with each other as one. One.
Cool, right? Super cool. So one of the things that One does is they organize trips, influencer trips, and we ended up taking 10 mom bloggers to Kenya about a year and a half ago. And Michael, one of the site visits we did was a dairy farmer in mid-Kenya who is a Land O'Lakes farmer, female. And what she does is encourages young women to get into her business because she says, you don't need to ask any man for money to buy shoes. And so she's very empowering to her community. And she has this wonderful message because she's become this very, very profitable, powerful force in her small town. And she's training the women about how to do the same thing. And we loved her. And then that same site, on that same day, we ended up going to a farm in just north of there. And it's interesting about the farms is that of all the site visits, the agricultural visits is where the women had the most power, and there was the most joy, and there was the energy was really, really great on the site visits, for the agricultural site visits. And we were meeting with a group of farmers, and they were really interested in why we all were carrying our phones. And we said to them, well, you know, right now what we're doing, we're telling all the moms in the United States about you. We just sent them pictures of you. We're telling them about what you are doing. And there was so much celebration and happiness and fun around that one idea, is that we can, because of the tools that we have, through our trip, 10 just average moms, we happen to have blogs or communities, were able to generate over 500 million media impressions. ABC News picked up the story, and it was pretty incredible. It was an incredible experience. But what I would love to say to you is that if you care about an issue like hunger or poverty, and you want to make a difference, you have the tools to do it. You don't need huge organizations. You don't need bureaucracy or red tape or whatever. You have your phone or you have your laptop. You can create anything that you want to create to make change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cooper. Next up is Tony Thelen, and he is the Director of Operations of John Deere's Intelligence Solutions Group. And he's going to share with us insights on how we can take the intelligence that we gather from modern precision agricultural technology here and transfer that to help enable and empower smallholder farmers in places like Asia.
Super. So thank you very much for that kind intro. I really got 3 things I'd like to share with you today. Just a little bit about myself, some examples of technology in agriculture today, and then leave you with a question about technology and the intersection of technology and agriculture. I was born and raised an hour and a half west of here and have worked for John Deere for 24 years. And when I'm not working for John Deere trying to help build and feed and clothe a better world through the equipment we provide, I am fishing for trout or taking care of my 3 daughters at home as well. So that's a little bit about me. I want to show you some examples of high precision agriculture because it's pretty amazing what's going on in the market today. There's 4 main areas of focus. How do you make more? How do you reduce cost? How do you sustain the environment better? And then the user, the human factor of technology. And they're all advancing at a rapid pace today. For example, the picture here, every year, the picture on the right there, you collect data when you harvest your fields. That data goes into the planting of the next spring or the next season. And that data helps us improve yields and lower the cost of all of our producer output. So the collection of data is a big deal when you harvest and when you seed. That's going on at a high rate today in large production agriculture around the world. Can you go back one? Sorry, there we go. The red one. We put GPS on large pieces of equipment. And in this example, there's a 120-foot boom off a sprayer, and the GPS tells it where it's already sprayed or where it doesn't need to spray. And that saves chemical, it saves time, it saves cost. It's just an all-around good thing for the grower and the environment in this case. Here's an example of that same technology used on a planter, where the variable rate, you can optimize the rate at which you put plants or seeds into the ground. And 3 different soil types have 3 different rates of planting, and it optimizes the ground that you've got for a maximum yield. And to solve the hunger problems and the feed the world type problems in the next 40 years, we can't go and get more ground. You've got to optimize the ground that you've got, and this kind of technology is really amazing at making it more efficient. Here's an example of that same technology with a picture in a field where the GPS shut off the individual rows. You'd be wasting seed, you'd be wasting energy and a lot of time if you planted past that end row. And that accounts for about 5 to 10% in a typical field that's not perfectly square. So it's not a small amount. A little fact that I think many of you may know, but 70% of the available water, the available fresh water around the world is in agriculture. And knowing the best way to apply water in agriculture is a big deal. And the best way to most efficiently use water is to bury the irrigation pipes underneath so you don't lose it all to evaporation. And GPS helps out in that case as well. If you take a step way back, a study was done last year between the yields that are increased and the costs that are reduced. It's about $14 billion just for the United States alone on advanced technology. You could add to that everything that's going on in South America, Europe, or the CIS countries as well. So, a question, and I talk about technology. There's a slide that's going around that maybe some of you may have seen in the past. The gist of it is we only have 10 to 12% more land to farm, and we've got to double the world's output of food in the next 40 years to feed 2 billion more people. And most of that has to come from technology to improve the productivity to get the food out there and feed the world. Now, how are we going to leverage technology to do that? That's where the creativity comes in. And if you think about a rural person in Southeast Asia or in Africa, they're not going to have the most advanced technology to start with. So the question is, how do you take the technology that exists today in the most advanced machines, look at what the real problem is, and how do you improve the productivity of the same amount of land in other parts of the world, and then around it, wrap the ecosystem of technology that we have available today. Internet, you've got cell phone technology, GPS is getting lower and lower cost. How do you move technology around the world in a frugal manner and really take advantage of what technology has to offer, not just the high ends that you see in some of the examples I showed earlier. And that's the thing that I think is worth spending some time around if we want to really truly optimize what little precious land we have to feed 2 billion more people by 2050. So thank you very much, and we've got to continue to learn together on how to do this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Tony. Next up is Pape Samb. He's the first non-American CEO of Phelps Stokes, and he's a passionate social entrepreneur who seeks to inspire young people in agricultural development.
Thanks. So the thing that we've been discussing today and we'll be discussing tomorrow is how do we feed the world. But today our panel, I think we're going to talk about how can we get the youth to be involved in agriculture. And I think Michael and me already talked about it, because most youth, when you say agriculture, they always see that you want them to be farmers. They don't want to be farmers. They want to be like everybody here. I always, when I talk to youth about agriculture, they will tell me, you live in the States, you're from Senegal, and now you want us to go to the farm. So that's the big question I think we all need to ask. What is agriculture, and why do we want them to be involved in agriculture, and how do we define agriculture? I think if we want them to be involved in agriculture, we should call it something else, but not agriculture. We should see it as a business, as you guys said. It's not only being in the rural area and planting the seeds, that's agriculture. It's all the chain, the value chain, planting it, the seed, harvesting it, transportation, putting it on the cell. So being part of that chain, I think that's what youth want. So to give you an example, we were in Benin, and we took a lot of youth to Benin to do a workshop. It was a big workshop. So we had this young girl from Egypt she's a farmer. She's a pineapple farmer. And during the workshop, she met a guy from Benin, a young man also. He has his pineapple factory. And after meeting this guy, she said to herself, wow, this guy started with 10,000 CFA, which is pretty much how much? It's $20. And 2 years later, he has his own factory producing a lot of pineapple cans, selling it all over. But this young woman in Egypt, she has a small farm, but cannot sell. But because just the competition, but the market is there. The product is not very good. So, but collaborating with this guy from Benin, she was able to sell a lot of pineapple, taking it from Benin, even though she can produce it, but she doesn't have the equipment, she doesn't have the land. A year later, this was in 2011, a year later, she employed 20 people, she's producing. So you see, they were able to establish that chain from Benin to Egypt to have a business. So that's what I call agriculture, how do we involve them? So the second thing that we really, how do we get them to be involved in designing their programs, being part of agriculture? That's another problem that we have also. And most of the time, I think the problem is not the youth, it's us organizations. It's how do we define their programs? We always assume that we adults, we are the wiser. We know everything. We should tell youth what to do. That's the main problem. We should be able to give them some space sometime. We should be able to let them use their 21st skills and technology to apply it into agriculture. We should also be able to let them to develop their own youth-led programs. In 2011, also, I'll give you another example. We were able to put together a youth workshop, but it was very difficult. I met a guy from in Colombia, and we talked about the idea of developing a youth-led program. He said, Pape, I don't think this will work. And I said, let's just try if it doesn't work. So we started reaching out to all these youth. They said, we're tired of these conferences and workshops. You always do it. You always bring us, put us together for 3 days, and nothing happened. So what we ended up doing was we took 7 months to plan the whole conference. We would involve youth, have them design the program, have them come up with the topics, and during the conference, they were the panelists, they were facilitating everything. So it was a 100% youth-led approach. So they did everything. Even before I got to the conference, they knew my name. Some of them brought me some gift just because of the relationship we developed over 7 months. So 3 months after the conference, they were in charge of everything. There were 200 youth. A year later, there were 5,000 youth all over the world in 88 countries. So just giving them that space and letting them do their own work, I think that's the approach that we really should use, and because we want them to be involved. We want them to take their own destiny in developing their own program. Now, the last thing that I would just want to discuss is how do we connect a generation of young entrepreneurs? How do we do that? We should be able to develop synergy among us organizations, because we have a lot of ideas. We have different values. We have different assumptions and beliefs. We all believe that our organizations are the best. We have the solutions. We know how to address it. It might be right, yes, but sometimes also, I think we're investing a lot of resources, a lot of time. If we can come together as organizations, we'll be able to develop a synergy to be able to maximize our investment, to maximize our resources, and to put together those different programs and organizations or youth programs that we're working around the world. Another thing also that I want to say, just to part of the last thing that I want to say, is how do we sustain those programs? How many programs have you heard or do you know that was developed over the years or a few years ago? They're no longer here. We cannot sustain them. It's not about us. All this program we're doing, if we're just doing non-profit work, if we're doing international development work, because of us, it's not going to be sustainable. We should not do it for our personal satisfaction, because it's not about us. We don't have all the resources. We don't have all the knowledge. It's about those people that we're working together. So sustaining those programs means that sometimes we really don't need to look very far to develop programs. Just identify local people on the ground who already have existing programs and see how you can support them. By sustaining those programs, they'll become successful, because youth, they really want to see something that's successful to be able to engage in that. If you tell them about Facebook, they know it's successful. All of them are there. If you tell them about Twitter, yes. If you tell them about Apple, they're all there, they know it. So let's show them something that's very successful so they can sustain that. So again, let's think about what we do, the assumptions that we make, the values that we have, and let's not transfer that to youth and let them be able to bring their own knowledge and skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pape. Last but not least is Danielle Nierenberg. And Danielle, as Director of Nourishing the Planet Project for the Worldwatch Institute, she has traveled the world and has shared with us her stories and showcased us the many, many innovations that people have and with projects going on around the world. And she's going to share that with us today.
Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. I'm really thrilled to be going last for a couple of reasons. But first, I want to give you all a round of applause for sticking it through and being up this late. And I'm thrilled to be here because I feel like all the things that the panelists have talked about really lead to what I want to talk, and that's innovation. I, as Bien said, had the opportunity to do amazing on-the-ground research in sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, and Latin America over the last few years. And I met with farmers and farmers groups, scientists and researchers, academics and NGOs, journalists. But my favorite group of people to talk to has always been youth and young people and students, because they're the ones who really literally hold the future in their hands, and they're changing the face of agriculture. So tonight what I want to do is just quickly describe some youth-led programs that I've met on the ground who are making agriculture more economically and environmentally and intellectually stimulating for youth, and helping both rural and urban areas alike become more vibrant places for young people to grow food and be involved in other parts of the food system. In other words, these are really the innovations that are making agriculture cool. So the first innovator I want to talk about is someone named Eddie Mukibi. Eddie is 24 years old, and he had the opportunity to go to university. He lives in the Mukono district of Uganda, which is about an hour and a half outside of Kampala, the capital of Uganda. And he really wanted to give back to his community. So he started a project that's called Project DISC, or Developing Innovations in School Cultivation. And through that project, he's built about 20 school gardens in the district. But it's not just gardening that he's teaching students. He's also teaching them about how to process crops and add value to them, and then how to market those crops in his community. And one of the most important things that DISC is doing is teaching an appreciation for Uganda's culinary traditions, teaching kids about the importance of native and indigenous vegetables. These are the vegetables that, because they have adapted over time, are resilient to drought, disease, and pests. And they're also really nutritious, and much more nutritious than the starchy staple crops that most farmers around the world are encouraged to grow, and the starchy staple crops that end up in most school lunches and breakfasts. One of the high school students that Eddie works with, her name is Mary Naku. She told me that, her work with Eddie and Project DISC, she has learned that we have learned to grow fruits and vegetables to support our lives, is what she told me. And this is someone who didn't see any opportunity before working with the project. The second example I want to talk about is Cape Coast University in Ghana. The Department of Agricultural Economics and Extension is helping restore something in Ghana that's been lost. They're helping educate students to become agricultural extension agents in their own communities. In the past, extension agents weren't paid much, they weren't well respected, they didn't have the skill sets that were really needed and applicable in their own communities. And so as a result, in much of Africa, extension services have declined or even disappeared altogether. But by taking a hands-on approach and having students spend a semester developing projects and innovations in their own communities, they're not only developing better skills and tools to help farmers increase yields and incomes, but they are helping professionalize agriculture and make it something that youth in the community who are watching them do this, something that they want to do, not something that they're forced to do. And youth aren't only making these innovations happen in Africa. Here in the US, a young woman named Deborah Eschmeyer started Food Corps to help other young people who are interested in farming and agriculture and healthy food get the skills that they need to become farmers, teachers, and entrepreneurs. Food Corps has recruited talented youth to serve for a year in different schools, much like the Peace Corps, and in communities across the United States, including right here in Iowa. They're teaching kids about cooking, better food choices, gardening, and making sure that the cafeterias in schools have better food choices. This is really a win-win situation, providing young people the opportunity to gain valuable skills and educate students and parents, while also making sure that the next generation has the knowledge it needs to know, 1, where food comes from, 2, how to make healthy food choices, and 3, how to prevent the diseases that have resulted from unhealthy food choices, including obesity, diabetes, and other food-related diseases. And the final example I want to talk about is the project of the Barilla Center for Food and Nutrition. This year, they reached out to high school students around the world to submit what they called a platform for brilliant young sustainable ideas on food and nutrition. Students were asked to give ideas on the topic of food and sustainability and how to reduce agriculture's impact on the environment. The very best ideas from this ask will be presented at the Barilla Center's annual conference next month. And again, really giving a platform for young people to describe their ideas about making agriculture better. It's a really bold move for a research institute to ask young people what they think and to present their ideas. And I'm really excited about what they'll come up with and who the winners will be. I think I'll just end there. But I want to leave you with the questions that I was asked before I participated on this panel. And that was really, how can we find ways to engage youth in agriculture? How can we make it more environmentally sustainable, more productive, more profitable, and more interesting for youth? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Now, I'd like to open the floor up for any questions that you may have. We've heard a diverse array of interesting perspectives, and if anyone cares to share or challenge us or share their insight in terms of what your feedback is. So, does anybody have any questions? Oh, yeah, okay. You want to go up to the mic in the center of the aisle? Thank you.
Hi. Hi, I'm Alice DuBois. I'm an ag teacher from Louisiana, and I have a question about bringing more youth voice into the area of advocacy, especially in the areas of food policy and making more inroads with our government and with our policymakers within our own states. So suggestions on how we can get our youth more involved, get them more recognized, and get the youth voice out there.
Okay, if we want to finish all the questions first, then we can go back and answer. Thanks. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Gretchen, and I'm a senior in high school. And I'd like to thank you all for a great presentation. You brought forward a lot of great organizations that need our help. And I was wondering how you would suggest empowering and educating youth in the United States and other developing nations to get involved in your programs and in other programs to help fight hunger and become hunger fighters. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for those questions. I guess, Ellen, you had something to say about the first question about advocacy.
Okay, so to answer to both questions. Number one, the number one thing we can do to get more youth voices into agriculture and to get more of any voices in agriculture is to vote for candidates who are promoting campaign finance reform. And that's the number one thing we can do to improve our entire global food system, is because if we don't have campaign finance reform, none of our voices matter, except for maybe some of the people that are maybe not in this room right now, but are here. And the second thing I will say is that if we vote with our fork, it is the most powerful thing we can do, because we're having influence to companies. And honestly, when you're a capitalist like me who ran a business, the best thing you can see is people buying the products that you want them to buy. And I think that's also the answer to the high school question, is that if we don't push for better food in high schools that promotes farmers in our own communities, how can we ever possibly imagine that we're going to help farmers around the world? And I think something that's really important is making sure that the food that our students are eating is nutritious, because we know that's really important for their own physical and mental development, and that's a really important way that you can be a leader and show other places around the world what the power of possibility is for healthier food systems.
I wanted to add, I wish I could announce it today, but hopefully next year. But I just came from Harvard, right? And here you have a cook giving a class about physics and cooking at Harvard. It has become one of the most popular undergrad classes at Harvard. That showed me the power of food, in this case to help bring physics to young people. So I saw the power of university. Hopefully next year, I've been working very hard the last 2 years in writing a curriculum that will address all the issues of food and the world: food and hunger, food and obesity, food and public policy, food and national security, food and history, food and science. I believe that education is everything. So I believe the way to begin is really making more universities to be the places where we're going to be having this talk about how to make sure that food is at the very top of the pyramid. So one day, through the universities, the next president of the United States, 20 or 30 years from now, will be a food president. And then, when we make that happen, and our congressmen and our senators, as Ellen just said, when every one of them will have a food talk, that day things will happen. But today, unfortunately, I don't think any of our congressmen and senators and the people running our government really are having a very deep, meaningful food talk. And we need to make that change, and this can start changing at the university level.
Okay, go ahead. There are a lot of organizations that are really great at mobilizing youth and college kids, and I have to say one of the best is One. You don't go to a U2 concert without college kids signing people up, educating people, getting people involved in One. And if you go to their website, there is the most unbelievable vast array of data and information and articles and stats and ways to get involved at your comfort level. So if it's signing a petition or if it's creating a campus advocacy group, they've got it. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in advocacy to take a look at One and some of the other organizations, but it's a great place to start.
And with that, I'd like to bring it back to the speakers here, and before we close, just ask each and every one of you, what is that one opportunity? We've learned so much tonight, and what is that one opportunity that you think we can seize today, or that we should seize, whether it's increased investment in a certain area, a specific partnership or a project? If you could just impart your thoughts on that. If you, Chef Jose, if you'd like to start.
I start? I'm leaving tomorrow. I wish I could stay. But I've been kind of trying to go to some of the other conferences and trying to see what people really were talking about. And I think we have, the elephant in the room. I like to call it the blue elephant, right? But we're talking about, many of us here, examples of small farmers, how we can make small farmers successful around the world so we really have a future. But the truth here is a big fight, right? It's the big agribusiness, the 3-4 companies that are going to be controlling, before we know, the vast majority of the food produced in the world. And then millions of small farmers that are only going to be producing 10, 20% of the food. Here we are in a situation, and this is the question I'm asking to everybody, where we have the big agribusiness, which I want them successful. I don't know how we're going to be feeding the world in the year 2050. And we are going to have answers. But I have a feeling like here is a big war between the small versus the big. And almost I want to compare to the banking crash. We had few banks that were controlling the entire economy worldwide. And at the end, they couldn't fail because we said they were too big to fail. At the end, money is money, and we can survive. But my only question here, and I think we all have to start talking more about it, is what's going to be happening if one day all those agribusiness, the Roundup ready pesticides and seeds that are creating problems as we speak, where we are already coming with the 2,4-D, the new pesticide that is going to be taking care of the super weeds, all of this controlled by a few bunch of big companies. I'm only asking, are we going in the right direction, giving so much power to few companies to feed the world? Me, I would not like to arrive to the year 2050 and used to see that we took a very wrong decision supporting with policies that help few and are not helping the many. So my thought here will be, I want the big companies to do well. I want the big companies to help feed the world. But I believe that we are putting too much into very few companies to feed the world and not giving enough opportunity to the millions of small farmers around the world that maybe they are the safety net that this planet needs to make sure that if this direction we're going fails, make sure that we have somewhere to fall back. So we need to be somehow giving a fair chance to the small farmers of the world to compete with the few companies that they are trying to take over. I'm only believing that we need to level down the field because I don't want to put the future of my children, what they're going to be eating, in the hands of few. I think we need to make sure that food is going to be somehow a right to all. And for that, we need to make sure that that possibility of feeding the world is shared by everyone. So that's my 2 cents.
Make sure your plate reflects the view you have for the world. So every time you sit and look at your plate, is that the world I want to be in? And I think that's the most important question we can ask ourselves every time we sit down.
There are lots of tools available now and organizations available now to help everybody connect with a farmer. And I'm always inspired coming to the World Food Prize because there's so many high school students and college students who get really excited about agriculture. And that's one of the challenges that exists in Africa, and I'm sure in other parts of the world too, is that kids don't want to go into agriculture because they don't think it's cool. But it's really important to tell the story of the youth here, that they get excited about it, and whether that's going on Africa World Connect, creating a profile and typing in and talking to a farmer kind of in real time, or posting a video on YouTube talking about how excited you are about agriculture, or posting tweets or posting on Facebook. There are tools, there are NGOs available if you want to, spend your lunch hour or 2 months volunteering overseas to make that connection with farmers. I think now is the time to do that when it can really have an impact.
Yeah, beyond your question, when you said it, I had 2 trains of thoughts, and I'll say what I'll just say. We have 1 billion people on the continent of Africa, and depending on who you talk to, World Bank, who we're going to have about 1.5, 1.6 in the next 20 years or so. So, somebody mentioned here, a colleague over here from John Deere, that agriculture takes up a lot of water. So does energy. By the way, energy companies use a lot of water to make electricity. A lot of people don't know that. I think they're the second biggest users of water, and then you have industrial. But anyways, so if you have 1.5, 1.6 billion people on a continent, there's a lot of water. You have to feed these people, they clothe them, they have to put them up. So, on a monthly basis, DAIN and our network and our colleagues, we get about over 100 different ideas. People just have really great ideas. If you don't have enabling environments, if you don't have, the mentorship, the technical assistance, the idea of using that network to get ideas scaled to another level, we'll give you one good example. I have one person, she's a little bit tough to work with. She's a little bit rough edge, but we patiently work with her. She essentially she wants to take shell husk, coconut shells and what have you, turn them to activated carbon. Now, activated carbon is what we use in water filters. We use in pure and Brita water filters. She basically wants to take that idea and turn it into an African version of pure Brita. All these ideas are there. It makes me actually, when I hear people from the West say, yeah, we want to help Africa, it's nice to help, but partner with us. We have the intellect. We have the might. The diaspora is there. So, I don't want to go off the tangent, but just think it to yourself. I mean, if you really are focused on that helping, take that out of your vocabulary. Focus on partnerships. That's why a lot of Africans are going to the Chinese, they're going to Brazilians, they're going to the Indians, because it's not condescending. And I just want you guys to think about that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So.
I guess the thought I'd like to leave you all with is just the tremendous potential that exists in our country to help others in the developing world. Just the volunteer network that we have in Vega, for example, we just scratched the surface in terms of how many volunteers that we can actually mobilize. But that ability to mentor a dairy co-op or youth to stay engaged in agriculture and to kind of light that spark to say that there really are opportunities and to help transfer that resource, that technical knowledge, whether it's a co-op director or an agribusiness expert or an ag science teacher at a U.S. university. The U.S. has a tremendous potential and a tremendous desire, and these volunteers represent the best of the best in terms of citizen diplomats, in terms of communicating, you know, our values and our technology and what we have to offer to create more opportunities to actually have that one-on-one contact and make a tremendous difference in the life of a young person in a rural area, for their co-ops, for their communities, for their families. So that's what I struggle against, how to find those resources to mobilize more of those willing volunteers here in the United States that want to help, but there just aren't as many opportunities.
That's great. We're all connected, all of us literally and figuratively, and the internet connects us. We're connected because we're all part of this one globe, and we have the tools to share and mobilize those around us around issues that we really care about and want to make a difference on in terms of hunger or poverty or helping someone in need. But we can do it. One voice, one person can make a difference in any way that you're comfortable with or any way that you want to use what you have to do it. And so we have an obligation, and we have the opportunity to move forward on what we care about.
Steve Jobs talked about how the 60s and 70s was the intersection of the arts and technology, and that's kind of the nexus of kind of Apple as a company. I honestly believe that we're at the doorstep of a similar intersection with agriculture and technology, whether that makes you collaborate better around the world in some of the information that can make your world better. You know, agriculture is the foundation of all culture, so it's happening everywhere around the world. If it helps you collaborate better, if it helps you farm better, if it just makes you feel better at the end of the day so you can enjoy time with your family. Farming's a tough life, and technology can ease that. We got to think through the right ways to leverage technology, and the world has always answered the call when we've come up against problems. It's just what's to our avail and what are the solutions out there, and that's the fun part. That's what's left in front of us the next 40 years. So,
I think we should, talking about partnership, we should think locally global and globally local. And what I mean by that is that if you look at all the different actors in agriculture, you take the farmers, you take the researchers, you should take the nonprofit organizations, you take the government and the corporations. How can we create value, sustainable value, that can bring all those different actors to develop partnership? For example, the farmer in the rural area, like I said earlier, will always think he or she has a small business. Take agricultural students to go help rural farmers trying to do research projects, help them develop business plans, and take agricultural corporations to fund that, but at the same time train these young farmers and these students to give them a practical place so they can develop the new talent. Take nonprofit organizations to advocate, to lobby for new policies based on those research and those findings that these young farmers and young students have developed. And bringing that together will create value. So each one of the different actors should see that what I'm doing is something that I can do better if somebody else was involved. So by doing that, start at the local level, but always think global, but starting at the local level, because you cannot go global without being local. But you cannot just be local. So that's what I mean by saying you should think locally global and globally local. Thank you.
The final thought I just want to leave everyone with is that we need to remember that farmers aren't just farmers. They're businesswomen and businessmen. They're educators and teachers in their communities. They're stewards of the land who provide important ecosystem services. And we also, along with that, need to remember that agriculture is not just agriculture, it's part of a larger food system. And that's a word a term I'd like to hear more of, that we're talking about not just producing enough calories, but a system that sustains itself, and so that we can preserve not just incomes and preserve the environment, but that we can preserve culinary traditions and the things that people hold on to throughout their lives that are important to them around food. These are things that don't get a lot of investment. They certainly don't get a lot of research funding. So really encouraging the funding and donor community to invest in these things that don't really have, the statistics or numbers to go with them and don't have, big payoffs in terms of yields. But these are the things that are really going to make the food system more sustainable.
And with that, thank you so much. Let's give another round of applause to our wonderful speakers. Thank you all for sticking it out and being with us in our first Dialogue Next. And we hope to see you back here bright and early tomorrow. And thank you all again.